The cellar door slammed shut above Diana Carver's head, and the lock turned with a sickening finality that made her stomach drop like a stone through black water. 3 days, Marcus said through the wood, his voice flat and cold as a winter grave. 3 days without food or water ought to teach you some respect, wife. Maybe then you'll learn to keep your mouth shut when I'm talking. Diana pressed her palms against the rough wooden door, her breath coming in sharp gasps. Marcus, please, I'm sorry, I won't. Save your breath. You'll need it. His footsteps retreated across the kitchen floor above, each thud of his boots like a nail in a coffin. Diana sank down onto the top step, wrapping her arms around her knees as the darkness swallowed her whole. The cellar smelled of damp earth and mildew, of potatoes gone soft in their bins and the metallic tang of old pipes. This wasn't the first time Marcus had locked her down here. It wasn't even the worst punishment he'd devised in their 5 years of marriage. But something about tonight felt different, more permanent, like a door closing on the last sliver of hope she'd been clutching. She was 26 years old, and she was going to die in this cellar. The thought should have terrified her, but instead, a strange calm settled over her shoulders, like a shroud. Diana closed her eyes and let the darkness press against her eyelids. Her grandmother's voice drifted up from memory, thin and papery with age, telling stories by the fire when Diana was just a little girl. If you're ever in mortal danger, child, and there's no human soul who can save you, whisper the old name. The name from before the church bells and the crosses. Whisper it 3 times, and he will come. Diana had been 7 years old, sitting cross-legged on the braided rug, eyes wide. Who will come, Grandma? The vampire king, Valdris Thornhart, he who rules the night, he who remembers the old pacts and the blood debts. Our family helped him once, long ago, when the hunters came with their torches and their hate. He swore an oath that any of our line who called his name in true need would be answered. Diana's mother had been furious when she'd found out about the story, forbidding Grandma from filling Diana's head with dangerous nonsense. But Diana had never forgotten. Even as she grew older and put away childish things, that name had stayed lodged in her memory like a splinter under the skin. Valdris Thornhart. She'd never believed it was real. How could she? How? Vampires were horror movie monsters in Halloween costumes, not actual beings who could be summoned like genies from a lamp. But then again, a year ago she wouldn't have believed her charming husband would turn into a monster either. Marcus had been so perfect during their courtship, so attentive and kind. The violence had started 3 months after the wedding, a slap that he'd apologized for with tears in his eyes. Then another. Then worse. Much worse. Diana had tried to leave twice. The first time, he'd found her at her friend's apartment and dragged her home by her hair. The second time, he'd gotten to her before she even made it to the bus station, and she'd spent a week in the hospital with a concussion and 3 broken ribs. After that, she'd learned that escape wasn't possible. Marcus had money, connections, a respectable job at his father's law firm. Who would believe sweet, successful Marcus Carver was beating his wife? The darkness pressed closer, and Diana's throat began to ache with thirst already. 3 days. She'd be lucky to survive 2 without water. Nothing left to lose, she whispered to the shadows. Might as well try. She took a deep breath, tasting dust and despair on her tongue. Then she spoke the name, letting each syllable fall from her lips like a stone down a well. Valdris Thornhart. The darkness seemed to thicken. Valdris Thornhart. The air grew cold enough that her breath misted in front of her face. Valdris Thornhart. For a long moment, nothing happened. Diana almost laughed at herself, at the absurdity of a grown woman whispering fairy tales in a locked cellar while her husband slept soundly upstairs. Then, the temperature dropped so suddenly that frost formed on the stone walls, glittering in light that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. A figure materialized at the bottom of the cellar stairs. He was tall, impossibly tall, with shoulders that nearly brushed the low rafters. His skin was white as fresh snow, luminous in the strange light, and his hair fell past his shoulders in waves of pure silver white. His face was beautiful in a way that made Diana's heart stutter sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, lips that curved in neither smile nor frown, but something ancient and knowing. His eyes were what held her, though. They were crimson red, the color of fresh blood. and they glowed with an inner fire that seemed to pierce straight through her skin to the terrified, hopeful, desperate core of her. He wore black clothing that looked both modern and timeless, a long coat over what might have been an expensive suit, everything tailored to perfection. But it was the way he held himself that truly marked him as something other. He stood with the absolute confidence of a predator at the top of the food chain, of royalty who had never questioned their right to rule. "A Carver calls my name." His voice was deep and rich, with an accent Diana couldn't place something old European mixed with the smoothness of centuries. "I confess, I'd begun to think your bloodline had forgotten." Diana scrambled to her feet, her legs shaking. "You're real. Oh God, you're actually real. I am Valdris Thornhart, King of the Night Court, Lord of the Blood Compact, First of the Turned." He tilted his head, studying her with those burning red eyes. "And you are dying, little Carver. I can smell the fear on you and the desperation. Tell me why you called." The words tumbled out in a rush. "My husband locked me down here. He's going to let me starve. I've tried to leave, I've tried to get help, but he always finds me, and no one believes me, and I didn't know what else to do. My grandmother told me about you, about the oath. I know it sounds insane, but I had nowhere else to turn." Valdris descended the stairs with fluid grace, each step silent despite his size. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could feel the coldness radiating from his skin like winter incarnate. He reached out slowly, giving her time to flinch away, but Diana held still as his pale hand cupped her chin, tilting her face to the light. His touch was ice cold, but gentle. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, and his expression darkened when he traced the fading yellow-green of an old bruise there. "He hurts you." It wasn't a question. "Yes," Diana whispered. "Anna, regularly." "Yes." "And you wish to be free of him." Diana's throat closed up, but she forced the words out. "I wish to be free. I wish to live. Even if it's selfish, even if I should be stronger, I want to live." Something flickered in those red eyes, something that might have been approval or respect or anger. "There's nothing selfish about wanting to survive, child. Your grandmother was wise to teach you the old ways. The oath still stands. I will answer your call." Relief crashed over Diana so powerfully that her knees buckled. Valdris caught her easily, one arm around her waist, holding her upright against his chest. Through his shirt, she could feel no heartbeat, only the cold stone solidity of something ancient and undead. Thank you," she breathed. Thank you. Save your gratitude. We must discuss terms." Diana pulled back enough to look up at him, though his arm remained around her waist, steadying her. "Terms?" "I do not rescue humans out of the kindness of my heart. The oath requires that I answer when a Carver calls, but the nature of that answer is negotiable." His eyes glowed brighter. "I can kill your husband. Would you like that?" The question was asked so casually, as if he were offering her a cup of tea. Diana's mind reeled. I don't... You need not answer now, but know that I can remove him from existence as easily as snuffing a candle if that is your wish." Valdris guided her to sit on the stairs, then crouched before her so their eyes were level. "I can also make you vanish, give you a new identity, resources to start again somewhere he will never find you, or I can do something else entirely. Tell me, Diana Carver, what would you ask of the Vampire King?" Her name sounded like poetry in his accent, all the hard edges smoothed into something beautiful. Diana wrapped her arms around herself, trying to think through the exhaustion and fear and sudden overwhelming presence of this impossible being. "I don't want to be a murderer," she said finally. "Even if he deserves it, even if part of me wants him dead, that's not who I want to be." Valdris nodded slowly. "Admirable and foolish. Men like your husband rarely change." "I know." Diana met his eyes, those burning crimson depths. "But I can't carry that weight. I've spent 5 years being beaten down, being made to feel small and worthless. If I start my new life with blood on my hands, even his blood, I'll never really be free. Can you understand that?" For a long moment, Valdris simply looked at her. Then he reached out and tucked a strand of her dark hair behind her ear, the gesture oddly tender from such a dangerous creature. "I understand better than you might think. Very well. I will not kill him unless he forces my hand, But Diana Carver, if I help you escape, you must come with me." Diana's heart skipped. "What?" "The oath requires balance. I answer your call, but you must enter my service for a time. Nothing permanent, nothing that will harm you. But I require a human companion for the next 6 months. Someone who can move in the daylight world, handle affairs I cannot attend to personally, represent my interests in certain delicate matters. In return, you will live in my protection, in luxury and safety, wanting for nothing. When the 6 months end, I will give you your new identity, enough money to start over, and a guarantee that no harm will come to you from your husband or anyone else. Do we have an accord?" It was too much to process. 10 minutes ago, she'd been dying in a cellar, and now a vampire king was offering her a job. But what choice did she have? Stay here and die? And try to run again and wait for Marcus to find her? "What kind of work would I be doing?" she asked carefully. "Nothing immoral. I need someone to manage human contractors who are renovating one of my properties, to attend certain daytime meetings on my behalf, to be a companion and conversation partner as immortality grows tedious without someone interesting to speak with." His lips curved slightly. "I will not ask you to hurt anyone, or to become a vampire yourself, or to share my bed unless you wish it. You would be my employee and my ward under my protection. That is all." Diana searched his face for deception, but found only ancient patience. He was giving her time to decide, not rushing her, not pressuring. Even crouched before her, he radiated power, but he wasn't using it against her. That, more than anything, made up her mind. 6 months, she said. "And then I'm free? Truly free? You have my oath, as vampire king and holder of the blood compact. No harm will come to you in my service, and when our time ends, you will have everything you need to build a new life." Diana extended her hand, remembering something from her grandmother's stories. "Then I accept. I enter your service willingly, Valdris Thornhart, and I thank you for answering my call." His cold fingers wrapped around hers, and power pulsed through the touch like electricity, like lightning, like the moment before a storm breaks. Diana gasped as symbols flared to life on her wrist, glowing silver white before fading to what looked like an intricate tattoo of twisted thorns in moonlight. "The mark of my protection," Valdris said softly, tracing the design with one fingertip. "Any creature of the night who sees this will know you are mine, and to touch you means death. Any human who tries to harm you will find their will sapped and their courage failing. It is not invulnerability, but it is significant protection." Diana stared at the mark, then back up at him. "What happens now?" "Now I remove you from this place." Valdris stood and pulled her gently to her feet. "Do you wish to confront your husband, or shall we simply disappear?" Every molecule of Diana's being screamed to run, to get out, to never see Marcus's face again. But a small, hard kernel of anger in her chest spoke up. "I want to confront him," she said, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. "I want him to know that I'm leaving, that he doesn't get to decide my fate." Valdris smiled, and it was a terrible, beautiful thing. "As you wish, brave little Carver. Stay close to me." He moved past her up the stairs and pressed one pale hand against the locked door. There was no sound, no crash or splintering, but suddenly the door swung open as if it had never been locked at all. Valdris stepped into the kitchen, and Diana followed, her heart hammering against her ribs. The house was dark, the only light coming from the street lamp outside, filtering through the curtains. It was past midnight. Marcus would be asleep upstairs in their bedroom, probably not even dreaming about the wife he'd left to die in the cellar. "Stay behind me," Valdris murmured. He moved through the house like a shadow, and Diana hurried to keep up, her socks silent on the hardwood floors. They climbed the stairs to the second floor. Diana's pulse roared in her ears. This was it, the last time she'd ever have to see this house, this prison disguised as a home. Valdris opened the bedroom door without bothering to be quiet. Light from the hallway spilled across the bed where Marcus lay sprawled on his back, snoring softly. He looked so normal, so harmless. Sandy blonde hair, regular features, the kind of face you'd forget in a crowd. How had such an ordinary-looking man caused her so much pain? "Wake him," Valdris said, standing at the foot of the bed like a specter of death. Diana's hands trembled, but she reached out and shook Marcus's shoulder. "Marcus, wake up." He came awake slowly, groggily, blinking in confusion at her standing there. "Diana, what the hell, I locked you in the—" Then his eyes focused past her shoulder, and he saw Valdris. All the color drained from Marcus's face. He scrambled backward against the headboard, his mouth opening and closing soundlessly. "What is that?" "What?" "My name is Valdris Thornhart," the vampire said, his voice soft and terrible as a blade sliding from its sheath. "And you, Marcus Carver, are a coward who beats women weaker than himself. Your wife has called upon me for aid, and I have answered." Marcus's eyes darted to Diana, and she saw the moment his shock turned to rage. "You bitch! What did you do? What is this thing?" "This thing is your reckoning," Valdris said before Diana could respond. He took a single step forward, and the temperature in the room plummeted. Frost formed on the windows. "Diana Carver is under my protection now. She is leaving, and you will never see her again. If you attempt to find her, I will know. If you attempt to harm her, I will know, and I will come for you." Marcus found his courage, the same false bravado he'd always used before lashing out. "You can't just take my wife. I'll call the police. Valdris moved faster than thought. One moment he was at the foot of the bed. The next he had Marcus by the throat, lifted clear off the mattress and pinned against the wall. Marcus's feet kicked uselessly in the air, his hands clawing at the pale fingers around his neck. "You will do nothing," Valdris said, his eyes blazing like coals. "You will tell anyone who asks that Diana left you, that you had marital problems and she departed to start a new life. You will not search for her. You will not hire investigators. You will not so much as speak her name with intent to harm. Do you understand me?" Marcus made a choking sound, his face turning purple. I said, "Do you understand?" "Yes," Marcus gasped. Valdris held him there a moment longer, then released him. Marcus collapsed onto the bed, coughing and wheezing, one hand clutched to his throat. Diana stood frozen, watching the man who had terrorized her for 5 years reduced to a trembling, pathetic heap. She'd expected to feel triumph, or satisfaction, or even fear at Valdris's display of violence. Instead, she just felt tired. So tired. "I'm leaving," she said quietly. Marcus looked up at her with watering eyes, and for just a second, she saw something like the man she'd thought she married, but it was too little, too late. "You'll never hurt me again." "Diana, wait," Marcus croaked. "I can change. I'll get help. No, the word came out firm and final. "We're done. I'm done. Goodbye, Marcus." She turned and walked out of the bedroom without looking back. Valdris followed, pulling the door closed behind them with a soft click that sounded like the end of a chapter, a book closing for the last time. In the hallway, Diana's composure cracked. She sagged against the wall, shaking from head to toe, adrenaline crashing through her system. "You did well," Valdris said, his cold hand gentle on her shoulder. "That took courage." "I don't feel brave," Diana whispered. "I feel like I'm going to throw up." "Bravery and fear are not mutually exclusive. Come. Let us leave this place. You need never return." "My things." "I will have people collect anything you wish to keep and deliver it to you. For now, we need to go before your husband regains his nerve and does something foolish." Diana nodded numbly. She followed Valdris down the stairs and out the front door into the cool night air. A car was waiting at the curb, sleek and black and expensive looking. A driver stood beside it, and Diana's breath caught. The driver was also a vampire. She could tell instantly the same white skin and hair, the same otherworldly beauty, though his eyes were more amber than red. He bowed deeply to Valdris. "My lord, everything is prepared." "Well done, Soren. This is Diana Carver. She is under my protection and will be residing with us. Ensure the staff is informed." Soren turned his amber gaze to Diana and bowed again. "Welcome, Miss Carver. It is an honor to serve." Diana managed a weak nod. Valdris guided her into the back seat of the car, sliding in beside her. The interior smelled of leather and something else, something faintly spicy and cold. As Soren pulled away from the curb, Diana watched her prison of a house recede into the distance. She was free. After 5 years, she was actually free. The reality of it hit her all at once, and she buried her face in her hands and wept. Great shuddering sobs that shook her whole body, 5 years of pain and fear and helplessness pouring out in a flood. She felt Valdris shift beside her, and then his arm came around her shoulders, drawing her against his chest. He said nothing, just held her while she cried, one cold hand stroking her hair with surprising gentleness. Eventually, the storm passed. Diana sat up, wiping at her face with shaking hands. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't usually—" "You have nothing to apologize for," Valdris said firmly. "You have survived something that would have broken many others. Your tears are earned." Diana looked at him, at this beautiful, terrifying creature who had saved her life. "Why are you being so kind to me?" Valdris considered the question, his red eyes thoughtful. "I am old, Diana. Older than you can possibly imagine. I've seen countless humans in countless situations, and I have learned to recognize strength when I see it. You did not call me out of spite or vengeance. You called me to survive, and when given the power to destroy your tormentor, you chose mercy instead. That is rare. That is worthy of respect." "I just didn't want to be like him," Diana said softly. "Precisely. You chose to remain yourself, even in the darkest moment. That is true strength." Valdris's thumb brushed across her cheek, wiping away a lingering tear. "You will do well in my service, I think, and perhaps, in time, you will heal." Diana looked out the window as the car drove through the empty city streets. "Where are we going?" "To my home. The Court of Thorns, we call it. It exists beneath the city, a realm where my kind has lived for centuries, hidden from human eyes. You will have your own rooms, privacy, safety. Rest tonight, and tomorrow we will discuss your duties properly. But for now, just breathe. You are safe." Safe. The word felt foreign, like trying to remember a language she'd once spoken fluently, but had forgotten. Diana leaned back against the seat, exhaustion weighing down her limbs like lead. "Will it always feel this unreal?" she asked quietly. Valdris's lips curved in a small smile. "For a time, yes, but eventually your new life will feel as solid as your old one. More solid, perhaps, for it will be built on truth rather than fear." Diana hoped he was right. She closed her eyes, letting the hum of the car's engine lull her into a daze. Beside her, Valdris sat in silence, his presence a strange comfort, cold and powerful. Yes, but steady, unshakable. After what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes, the car descended into an underground garage that looked like it belonged in a luxury hotel. Soren opened the door, and Valdris helped Diana out. They walked through a corridor carved from smooth black stone, lit by crystal sconces that cast a soft, warm light. Everything was beautiful, elegant, timeless. Diana felt like she'd stepped into a fairy tale or possibly a very expensive fever dream. Valdris led her through winding passages until they reached a set of ornate double doors. He pushed them open, revealing a suite of rooms that took Diana's breath away. The sitting room was decorated in deep jewel tones, emerald and sapphire, and ruby, with plush furniture and thick carpets and artwork that looked genuinely ancient. Through an archway, she could see a bedroom with a 4-poster bed draped in silk. Another door led to what appeared to be a marble bathroom. "This is yours," Valdris said, "for as long as you remain in my service and whenever you might visit afterward. These rooms are yours alone. No one enters without your permission." Diana turned in a slow circle, trying to take it all in. "This is too much. I don't deserve—" "You deserve safety and comfort, at the very least." Valdris moved to a sideboard and poured water from a crystal pitcher into a glass. He brought it to her. "Drink. You were locked in that cellar for hours without water." Diana drank gratefully, the cool liquid soothing her parched throat. When she lowered the glass, Valdris was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "There is food as well if you're hungry. The kitchens can prepare anything you desire." "I'm too tired to eat," Diana admitted. "I just want to sleep for about 100 years." Valdris's smile was brief but genuine. "Sleep then. I will be nearby if you need anything. Simply call my name and I will hear you." He moved toward the door, and Diana felt a sudden spike of panic at the thought of being alone. "Wait," she called out. Valdris paused, looking back at her. Diana twisted her hands together. "Will you stay? Just for a little while? I know it's stupid, but I don't want to be alone right now." Something softened in those ancient red eyes. "It is not stupid. I will stay as long as you need." He settled into one of the armchairs by the empty fireplace, looking perfectly at ease. Diana kicked off her shoes and curled up on the sofa opposite him, pulling a throw blanket over her legs. "Can I ask you something?" she said after a moment. "Of course." "How old are you, really?" Valdris tilted his head, considering. "I was born in the year 1147, by the Christian calendar. I was turned in 1172 at the age of 25. So I have been a vampire for 854 years, give or take." Diana's mind reeled. 854 years, I can't even imagine. Few can. It is both a gift and a burden, immortality. You see everything change, everyone you care for die. You become very careful about attachments. His eyes met hers. But it also grants perspective. Problems that would devastate a human, I know will pass. Pain that seems eternal, I know will fade. Everything is temporary, except for us. "Do you ever get lonely?" The question seemed to catch him off guard. He was quiet for a long moment. "Yes," he said finally. "More than I care to admit. Immortality is a lonely existence, Diana. Other vampires provide companionship, but we are all old, all jaded. Sometimes I crave the presence of someone who still sees wonder in the world, someone who feels things deeply and without reservation." "Is that why you want me to stay? Because I'm human?" "Partly. Also because your grandmother's bloodline interests me. The Carvers have always been unusual humans, perceptive, brave, with an affinity for the supernatural. Your ancestors helped me and mine when the church hunted us with holy fire. I have not forgotten that debt, and I am pleased to repay it." Diana pulled the blanket tighter. "Tell me about that, about what happened with my ancestors." Valdris settled back in his chair, his eyes growing distant with memory. "It was 1483. The church had whipped the humans into a frenzy, convinced that vampires were servants of the devil who needed to be purged. They were burning anyone suspected of harboring or helping us. Your ancestor, a woman named Margaret Carver, owned an inn on the outskirts of a village. When hunters came seeking me and my companions, Margaret hid us in a secret cellar beneath her kitchen. She risked her life and her children's lives to protect us. When the hunters finally moved on, I swore an oath to her that any of her descendants who called my name in mortal need would receive my aid. It has been honored through the centuries, though few have called upon it." "Why did she help you?" Diana asked softly. "I asked her that once. She said she could tell we were not evil, despite what the church claimed. She said she judged beings by their actions, not their nature." Valdris's expression grew thoughtful. She also said that the true monsters were often the ones carrying torches and shouting about righteousness. Diana felt a surge of pride for this ancestor she'd never known. "She sounds amazing." She was. Her courage saved many lives that night. Valdris met Diana's eyes. "You have that same courage, I think. It manifests differently, but the core is the same." Diana wasn't sure she agreed, but the compliment warmed something in her chest nonetheless. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, and Diana felt her eyelids growing heavy. "You should rest," Valdris said gently. "It has been a long night." Diana wanted to protest, wanted to keep talking, but exhaustion was pulling her under like a tide. She nodded and stood on wobbly legs. "Thank you, Valdris, for everything." "You need not thank me. I'm simply honoring an old debt." But his eyes were kind as he watched her move toward the bedroom. Diana paused at the threshold. "Will you really be nearby if I need you?" "I will be in my chambers, 3 corridors away. Call my name and I will hear. You are safe here, Diana. I give you my word." She nodded and slipped into the bedroom, closing the door softly behind her. The bed was impossibly comfortable, the sheets like clouds against her skin. Diana sank into them and was asleep almost before her head hit the pillow. She dreamed of thorns and moonlight, of red eyes in the darkness that watched over her with unexpected gentleness. When Diana woke, she had no idea what time it was. The rooms had no windows, being underground, she supposed, but a soft light illuminated everything as if it were late morning. She stretched, feeling muscles protest after the ordeal of the previous night. A knock sounded at the door to her suite. "Come in," Diana called, then wondered if that was safe. But Valdris had said these rooms were hers, that no one would enter without permission. The door opened to reveal a young woman who was definitely human. Warm brown skin, dark curly hair, and normal brown eyes. She pushed a cart laden with covered dishes. "Good morning, Miss Carver. I'm Elena, one of the human staff here. Lord Valdris asked me to bring you breakfast and to see if you need anything." Diana sat up, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. "There are other humans here?" Elena smiled. "About 20 of us work in the court. We handle daytime tasks, staffing, upkeep, things like that. The vampires treat us well, and the pay is excellent. Plus, we get to live in absolute luxury." She began uncovering dishes, eggs, toast, fresh fruit, bacon, pastries that smelled like heaven. "Are you hungry?" Diana's stomach growled audibly, answering the question. Elena laughed and wheeled the cart closer to the bed. "Lord Valdris said you'd had a rough night. Eat as much as you want, and there's more where this came from. When you're ready, he'd like to speak with you about your duties. No rush, though. He said to take your time." Diana accepted a plate of food gratefully. "Elena, can I ask you something? What's it like working here, for vampires?" Elena sat on the edge of the bed, seemingly comfortable despite being in her employer's guest's room. "Honestly, it's the best job I've ever had. I was working 3 jobs, barely making rent, drowning in student debt. Then I met Soren. He's Lord Valdris's head of security, and he offered me a position here. Room, board, generous salary, and all I have to do is help manage the household and run errands during the day. The vampires are respectful. They never feed from the staff without consent, and they actually seem to care about our well-being." "Have you ever been afraid of them?" Elena considered the question seriously. "At first, yes. They're predators, and that's hard to forget. But I've been here 2 years now, and I've never once felt unsafe. Lord Valdris runs a tight ship. There are rules about how vampires interact with humans, and the consequences for breaking those rules are severe. Plus, he's a good leader, fair, honorable in a very old-fashioned way." Diana absorbed this information, eating slowly. It all seemed so surreal, eating breakfast in an underground vampire court, talking casually about working for immortal predators. "How do I look?" she asked suddenly, then felt stupid. But Elena just smiled. "Like you've been through hell but came out the other side. There are clothes in the wardrobe we guessed at your size, but everything should fit or can be altered. Take a long bath, get dressed, and take your time. Lord Valdris is in no hurry." After Elena left, Diana did exactly that. She soaked in the enormous marble tub until her skin pruned, washing away the grime and fear of the previous night. The wardrobe was full of beautiful clothes in her size jeans and soft sweaters, elegant dresses, comfortable pajamas. She chose a simple outfit of black pants and a deep green blouse, both of which fit perfectly. She found makeup and skincare products in the bathroom, all high-end brands. As she covered the bruise on her cheek with concealer, Diana caught her own eyes in the mirror. She looked different. Tired, yes, but there was something else, a spark that had been missing for years. Hope, maybe. When she was ready, Diana opened her door to find Soren waiting in the corridor. He bowed slightly. "Miss Carver, Lord Valdris is in his study and would be pleased to see you if you're ready." Diana nodded, and Soren led her through the winding passages of the court. She tried to memorize the route, but quickly gave up. The place was a maze of beautiful corridors and elegant rooms. Finally, they reached a set of carved wooden doors. Soren knocked once, then opened them. Valdris's study was magnificent. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined the walls, filled with volumes that looked ancient and precious. A massive desk dominated the center of the room, and behind it, Valdris sat in a high-backed chair, reading a leather-bound book by the light of a Tiffany lamp. He looked up when Diana entered, and something like pleasure crossed his pale features. "Diana, you look rested. Please sit." She settled into one of the chairs across from his desk, feeling oddly nervous. Valdris set his book aside and gave her his full attention. "How are you feeling?" "Overwhelmed," Diana admitted, "but alive, thanks to you." "You are welcome. Now, shall we discuss your role here?" For the next hour, Valdris explained what he needed from her. He owned several properties in the city that were being renovated, and he needed someone to oversee the human contractors during daylight hours. He also had investments and business interests that sometimes required a human representative. Diana would essentially be his daylight proxy, handling tasks he couldn't attend to personally. I don't have any business experience, Diana said uncertainly. I was a librarian before I married Marcus. After the wedding, he made me quit. A librarian? Valdris looked pleased. Then you are organized, detail-oriented, and comfortable with research and information management. Those skills will serve you well. And I will guide you in the specifics. You need not fear. I am not throwing you into deep water and expecting you to swim. They talked through logistics. She would have a salary paid into a new bank account in her name alone, a company credit card for business expenses, and access to a car and driver. Her working hours would be flexible, but generally during the day while Valdris slept. What about at night? Diana asked. What will I do? Whatever you wish. Read, explore the court, socialize with the staff, or, if you're amenable, spend time with me. I meant what I said about wanting companionship and conversation. Immortality is tedious without interesting people to talk to. Diana found herself smiling. I think I'd like that. Talking to you last night helped. It made everything feel less terrifying. Valdris's expression softened. I'm pleased to hear it. You may also find that some of the other vampires will seek your company. You are new, human, and under my protection that makes you an object of curiosity. If anyone makes you uncomfortable, tell me immediately. Will they want to feed from me? The question hung in the air. Valdris leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. Possibly, but no one will feed from you without your explicit consent, and you are under no obligation to provide it. We have willing human donors who enjoy the exchange, and we also keep stores of preserved blood. You need never offer your blood if you do not wish to. What's it like, being fed from? Valdris's eyes glowed a little brighter. I will not lie to you, Diana. It is intensely intimate. A vampire's bite contains a mild venom that causes euphoria and pleasure in the human. For both parties, it is intense. Many humans find it addictive. That is why consent is so crucial. It is easy to take advantage of someone who craves the bite. Diana felt heat creep into her cheeks at the way he described it. Oh, you need not decide now. If you are ever curious, you may ask, and I will explain further. But there is no pressure. You are here as my employee and ward, nothing more unless you desire otherwise. The way he said that last part, low and careful, made Diana's heart skip. She changed the subject quickly. When do I start work? Tomorrow, if you feel ready. Today I thought you might like to explore the court, meet more of the staff, acclimate yourself. Soren can give you a tour. Valdris stood and Diana followed suit. You are not a prisoner here, Diana. You are a guest and a valued employee. This is your home now for the next 6 months. Treat it as such. Diana felt emotion tighten her throat. I don't know how to thank you. Valdris crossed around the desk and took her hand gently in his cold one. He raised it to his lips and pressed a soft kiss to her knuckles, the gesture courtly and old-fashioned. Survive. Heal. Thrive. That is thanks enough. Over the following weeks, Diana settled into her new life with a strange sense of unreality mixed with growing contentment. Her days were busy with work overseeing contractors at the properties Valdris owned, meeting with architects and designers, handling correspondence and scheduling. It was challenging, but Valdris was right that her skills transferred well. She was organized, quick to learn, and found she actually enjoyed the work. Her nights were the most surprising part of her new life. She'd expected to feel isolated, surrounded by vampires in an underground court. Instead, she found herself welcomed. The human staff were friendly and helpful. Elena became a quick friend, showing Diana around the court and introducing her to others. There were several young professionals like Elena, plus some older humans who had worked for the vampires for decades and clearly loved their jobs. The vampires themselves were more varied than Diana had expected. Some were ancient and reserved, barely acknowledging her presence. Others were curious and friendly, asking about the modern world and human perspectives. All of them treated her with respect, and Diana realized it was because of Valdris. His protection mark on her wrist and his clear regard for her set the tone for everyone else. But it was the evenings with Valdris himself that Diana came to treasure most. Most nights, after she finished her work and he'd risen from his daily rest, they would spend hours together. Sometimes in his study, talking over books and history, sometimes in the court's beautiful library, where Diana happily lost herself in volumes that were centuries old. Sometimes they simply walked through the corridors, and Valdris would tell her stories of the court's history, of the vampires who lived there, of the world as it had been before Diana was born. He was nothing like Marcus. Where her husband had been controlling and diminishing, Valdris was respectful and encouraging. He asked her opinions and actually listened to her answers. He laughed at her jokes. He seemed genuinely interested in her thoughts and feelings. Diana found herself watching for him each evening, her heart lifting when she heard his distinctive footsteps in the corridor. She told herself it was just gratitude, just relief at being treated well after years of abuse. But deep down, she knew it was becoming something more. One evening, about 6 weeks into her stay, Diana was in the library when Valdris found her. She was curled up in one of the comfortable reading chairs, absorbed in a book about vampire history that she'd found. "Interesting reading?" Valdris asked, settling into the chair across from her. Diana looked up with a smile. "Very. Did you really help design Notre Dame?" "I consulted on some of the architectural elements, yes. The lead architect was a friend of mine, a human with extraordinary vision." Valdris tilted his head, studying her. "You seem happy tonight." "I am," Diana said, and realized it was true. "Is that strange? 6 weeks ago I was sure I was going to die, and now I'm sitting in a vampire library reading about medieval architecture and feeling content." "It is not strange, it is healing." Valdris reached over and gently took the book from her hands, setting it aside. "Diana, I wish to ask you something, but I do not want you to feel pressured." Her heart rate picked up. "Okay. There's a gathering tomorrow night, a formal event where the noble vampire families of the region come together to discuss politics and territory. It is tedious, but necessary. I would like you to attend with me." Diana blinked. "Me? Why?" "Because I enjoy your company. Because having a human companion at such events is a sign of power and stability. It shows I am confident enough to bring someone vulnerable into a room full of predators. And because I think you would find it interesting." His red eyes searched her face. "But if you are uncomfortable with the idea, I will not press." "Will I be safe there?" "Absolutely. You would be under my personal protection, and every vampire there would know it. To harm you would be to declare war on me, and no one is that foolish." Diana considered it. The idea was terrifying, but also thrilling. When was the last time she'd done something exciting? When was the last time someone had wanted her company, not as an accessory, but as a genuine companion? "What would I wear?" Valdris's smile was brilliant. "I will have something appropriate sent to your rooms. Is that a yes?" "It's a yes." The next evening, Diana stared at herself in the mirror and barely recognized her reflection. The dress that had appeared in her wardrobe was a masterpiece deep midnight blue silk that clung to her curves before flowing to the floor with delicate silver embroidery along the bodice and hem. It was elegant and sophisticated, making her look like she belonged in Valdris's world. Elena had helped her with hair and makeup, sweeping Diana's dark hair into an elegant updo and enhancing her features with subtle cosmetics. The bruises were long-healed, and for the first time in years, Diana looked at herself and saw someone beautiful. A knock at her door made her jump. She opened it to find Valdris, and her breath caught. He was devastating in formal evening wear, a black suit that looked custom-tailored, a deep crimson shirt beneath it, his white hair loose around his shoulders. His red eyes blazed when he saw her, and he went very still. "Diana," he breathed, "you are radiant." She felt heat flood her cheeks. "Thank you. You look incredible, too." He offered his arm, the gesture courtly. "Shall we?" The gathering was held in the largest chamber of the court, a ballroom that Diana hadn't even known existed. It was magnificent vaulted ceilings, crystal chandeliers, walls hung with rich tapestries, and it was full of vampires. Diana's steps faltered as she took in the crowd. There had to be at least 100 vampires here, all beautiful and terrifying, all radiating that predatory grace. She felt Valdris's hand cover hers where it rested on his arm. "Stay close to me," he murmured. "You are safe." He led her into the room, and Diana felt every eye turn to them. Conversations paused. The attention was overwhelming, but Valdris never faltered, his posture confident and regal. Other vampires approached throughout the evening, greeting Valdris with varying degrees of deference and curiosity. He introduced Diana each time, his hand possessive on her lower back or at her waist. She smiled and made small talk, trying not to show how nervous she was. Lord Valdris, a female vampire with hair like spun silver said, her amber eyes fixed on Diana. Your human companion is lovely. Where did you find her? Diana is under my personal protection, Valdris said smoothly. She is employed in my service and off-limits to hunting or feeding without her explicit consent. The female vampire's eyes flashed with something like disappointment, but she nodded. Of course, my lord. I meant no offense. After she moved away, Diana whispered, Did she want to feed from me? Very much so, I suspect. You smell appealing to our kind, something about your blood chemistry perhaps, but she will not dare approach you without permission. Diana wasn't sure if she should be flattered or terrified. She settled for staying very close to Valdris's side. Midway through the evening, Valdris was pulled into a political discussion with several other vampire lords. He looked reluctant to leave Diana, but she squeezed his hand. I'll be fine, I'll just get some air. She made her way to one of the side terraces, not actually outside, but a balcony overlooking a lower level of the court. Diana leaned against the railing, taking deep breaths. You are the human everyone is talking about. Diana spun to find another vampire standing a few feet away. He was male, with the same white skin and hair, but his eyes were an unsettling silver. His smile didn't reach those eyes. I'm Diana Carver, she said, trying to sound confident. I am Corvus Nightshade. I must say, it is bold of Valdris to bring a human to such a gathering. We are all predators here, Miss Carver. Does that not frighten you? There was something mocking in his tone that raised Diana's hackles. Lord Valdris assured me I would be safe under his protection. Of course, of course. Valdris is quite powerful, and his protection is not to be taken lightly. Corvus moved closer, and Diana resisted the urge to back away. But tell me, what does our vampire king want with a human companion? Surely it is more than simple conversation. Diana lifted her chin. That's between Lord Valdris and myself. Corvus laughed, a cold sound. Spirit, how refreshing. Most humans cower in our presence. But you should be careful, little human. Valdris may seem honorable, but he is still a vampire. We take what we want, and we discard what no longer serves us. Do not mistake his current interest for genuine affection. Before Diana could respond, a familiar cold presence appeared behind her. Valdris' voice was soft and absolutely lethal. Corvus, I do not recall giving you permission to speak with Diana. Corvus' smile faltered. I meant no harm, my lord, simply making conversation. You were attempting to frighten and undermine my companion. Valdris moved to Diana's side, and the air around them seemed to crackle with power. Consider this your only warning. Diana is under my protection. That means she is not to be approached, spoken to, or looked at with anything less than the respect due to my own person. Am I understood? Corvus bowed deeply, all mockery gone. Perfectly, my lord. My apologies. He disappeared back into the ballroom, and Diana let out a shaky breath. Valdris turned to her, his expression concerned. Did he hurt you? No, just tried to scare me. Said you'd get bored of me and discard me. Diana looked up at him. He's wrong, right? About vampires just taking what they want? Valdris cupped her face gently in both hands. He is wrong about me. I do not take, Diana. I ask. I respect. And I honor my commitments. You are not some temporary amusement to me. Then what am I? The question hung between them, heavy with implications. Valdris's thumbs stroked across her cheekbones, his touch feather light. You are someone I have come to care for deeply, he said quietly. Someone whose company I treasure, whose thoughts I value, whose happiness matters to me. Is that enough of an answer? Diana's heart hammered. Valdris, you need not say anything. I know this situation is complicated, and I know you are still healing from what was done to you. I simply want you to know that you are valued. Truly valued. Diana reached up and covered his hands with hers, holding them against her face. You've been so kind to me, so patient. I don't know how to thank you. Be happy, be yourself. That is thanks enough. He leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead, the gesture tender and careful. Diana closed her eyes, feeling safe in a way she hadn't in years. They left the gathering shortly after, Valdris citing Diana's need to rest as his excuse. In truth, Diana suspected he just wanted to remove her from the predatory atmosphere. Back in her rooms, she changed into comfortable pajamas while Valdris waited in her sitting room at her invitation. "Can I ask you something personal?" Diana said, settling onto the sofa beside him. "Always." "In 850 years, have you ever been in love?" Valdris was quiet for a long moment. "Yes," he said finally. "Twice. The first was shortly after I was turned, a human woman who knew what I was and loved me anyway. She grew old while I remained young, and I held her hand as she died. The second was another vampire, centuries later. We were together for nearly 200 years before she chose to walk into the sun one dawn. The weight of immortality had become too much for her." Diana's heart ached for him. "I'm so sorry. It was long ago. The pain has faded, though the memories remain." He turned to look at her. "Why do you ask?" "Because I'm trying to understand you, trying to figure out why the Vampire King is being so patient with a broken human." "You are not broken, Diana. You are healing. There is a difference." Valdris took her hand, interweaving their fingers, his so cold, hers so warm. "And I am patient because you are worth patience, because I see in you a strength and kindness that is rare in any species, because when I am with you, I do not feel like an immortal predator. I simply feel like someone fortunate enough to share your company." Diana felt tears prick her eyes. "You make me feel like I matter, like I'm not just an object to be controlled or discarded. You do matter. You always have, even when that monster you were married to tried to convince you otherwise." She shifted closer to him on the sofa, resting her head on his shoulder. Valdris went still, then slowly relaxed, one arm coming around her. "Is this all right?" Diana asked. "More than all right." His voice was soft. "You may take whatever comfort you need from me, Diana. I am here." They sat like that for a long time, Diana soaking in his cold presence, finding security in the steady strength of him. Eventually, she dozed off, and when she woke sometime later, she was in her bed, tucked carefully under the covers. On her nightstand was a single white rose and a note in elegant script. "Sleep well, brave Diana. I will see you tomorrow evening." Diana picked up the rose, smiling, and fell back asleep with it cradled against her chest. The weeks that followed were some of the happiest of Diana's life. She threw herself into her work with enthusiasm, taking pride in successfully managing the various projects Valdris had entrusted to her. The contractors respected her, the business contacts treated her professionally, and she felt her confidence growing daily. But it was her relationship with Valdris that truly blossomed. They spent nearly every evening together, and Diana found herself falling for him with an intensity that should have frightened her, but instead felt right. He was everything Marcus hadn't been: respectful, kind, genuinely interested in her as a person. He made her laugh with his dry observations about human nature. He challenged her intellectually with debates about philosophy and ethics. He listened when she talked about her fears and dreams, never dismissing or belittling her. And he was patient. So very patient. When Diana flinched away from sudden movements, he slowed down. When she panicked about something going wrong with work, he calmly talked her through solutions. When she woke from nightmares about Marcus, he was there, holding her until the fear subsided. 3 months into her stay, Diana realized she was in love with him. The realization hit her one evening when she was getting ready for another gathering, a smaller, more intimate dinner with some of Valdris's closest vampire allies. She was fastening a necklace when Valdris appeared in her doorway. "You look beautiful," he said simply, and Diana's heart just knew. She loved him. She was in love with the Vampire King, this ancient, powerful, impossible being who had saved her life and then taught her how to live again. "Thank you," she managed, her voice a little breathless. At dinner, she found it hard to focus on the conversations around her. She kept glancing at Valdris, watching the way he moved, the way he spoke, the way his eyes crinkled slightly when he smiled. How had she never noticed how beautiful he was? Well, no, she'd noticed that from the start. But this was different. This was seeing past the vampire to the person beneath and finding that person extraordinary. After the dinner, they walked through the court's gardens and underground space, magically lit to simulate moonlight, filled with night-blooming flowers. Diana had discovered it weeks ago and loved coming here to think. You seem distracted tonight, Valdris observed. Is something troubling you? Diana stopped walking and turned to face him. Her heart pounded, but she was tired of being afraid, tired of holding back. I need to tell you something. Valdris's expression grew concerned. Of course. What is it? I'm in love with you. The words hung in the air between them. Valdris went absolutely still, his red eyes wide with shock. Diana. I know this is complicated, she rushed on. I know I'm only supposed to be here for 6 months, and I know you're a vampire, and I'm human. And I know I probably seem like a mess still recovering from abuse. But I can't keep pretending I don't feel this way. You've been so wonderful to me, and somewhere along the way, I fell in love with you, and I needed you to know. Valdris reached for her, his hands framing her face with infinite gentleness. Diana, do you truly mean that? Every word. I did not dare to hope, he breathed. I thought I was trying so hard to give you space to heal, to not pressure you, to let you come to your own conclusions. But I have been in love with you for weeks now, watching you grow stronger, watching you flourish, watching you become yourself again. It has been a privilege and a joy. You are remarkable, Diana Carver. Diana felt tears spill down her cheeks. Really? You love me too? With everything I am. Mortal, immortal. It makes no difference. You have claimed my heart as surely as you claimed my protection that night in the cellar. She reached up, pulling his face down to hers. Then kiss me. Please. Valdris's eyes blazed bright red. Are you certain? Once I kiss you, Diana, I will not want to stop. I will want all of you. I'm certain. I trust you. I love you. He kissed her then, and it was nothing like she'd ever experienced. His lips were cool but soft, and the kiss was tender at first, almost reverent. Then Diana made a small sound in the back of her throat, and something seemed to break in Valdris. He deepened the kiss, one hand sliding into her hair while the other wrapped around her waist, pulling her flush against him. Diana clung to him, kissing him back with everything she had. She felt his fangs against her bottom lip, a sharp reminder of what he was, but it didn't frighten her. Nothing about Valdris frightened her anymore. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, or rather, Diana breathing hard while Valdris simply looked at her with wonder, Diana laughed breathlessly. Wow. Wow indeed. Valdris rested his forehead against hers. You are sure about this? About us? I am not human, Diana. I cannot give you a normal life. I don't want normal. Normal was being trapped and abused. You've given me extraordinary, and I want more of it. More of you. Valdris smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing Diana had ever seen. Then you shall have me, for as long as you want me. What about the 6 months, our agreement? Consider it void. You are not my employee, Diana. You are the woman I love. Stay with me not because of an oath, but because you choose to. Diana kissed him again, softer this time. I choose to. I absolutely choose to. They walked back through the court, hand in hand, and Diana felt like she was floating. She was in love, and loved in return. And for the first time in years, the future looked bright instead of terrifying. That night, Valdris stayed with her in her rooms, and they talked until dawn approached, and he had to retreat to his chambers. But he kissed her good night at her door, long and deep and full of promise. Tomorrow night, he murmured against her lips, we will have all the time in the world. I'll be counting the hours, Diana whispered back. The next months were blissful. Diana and Valdris became inseparable, navigating their relationship with care and growing confidence. He courted her properly, with flowers and gifts and romantic dinners. He introduced her to vampire society as his chosen companion, and no one dared question or challenge it. Diana continued her work, but now it felt different, not an obligation, but a partnership, building something with the man she loved. One evening, about 5 months into their relationship, Valdris brought Diana to his private chambers. She'd never been there before, and she looked around with curiosity. The rooms were elegant and masculine, filled with beautiful antiques and personal treasures from centuries of life. Diana, I want to give you something, Valdris said, drawing her to the window, or rather, the spelled wall that showed an illusion of the night sky above the city. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, and Diana's heart jumped. This is not an engagement ring, he said quickly, seeing her expression. Not yet, at least. I know we've only been together a few months and I want to give you time, but this is a promise." He opened the box to reveal a ring of white gold, set with a deep red ruby that seemed to glow with inner fire. "This ruby was mined in 1315. I've carried it for 700 years, waiting for someone worthy of it. You are that person, Diana. This ring is my promise that I will love you, protect you, and honor you for as long as you'll have me. And when you're ready, when you're sure, I will ask you properly to be my wife. But for now, will you accept this as a symbol of my commitment?" Diana's vision blurred with tears. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Valdris slipped the ring onto her right hand, and it fit perfectly. Then he pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the most precious thing in his immortal life. "I love you," he whispered into her hair. "My brave, beautiful Diana." "I love you too," she whispered back. "My Valdris." They made love for the first time that night, and it was tender and passionate and everything Diana had never known she could have. Valdris was so careful with her, so attentive to her every reaction, making sure she felt safe and cherished. And when his fangs grazed her neck, asking silent permission, Diana tilted her head in offering. The bite was ecstasy. Valdris had been right about the venom. It sent waves of pleasure through her body, intensifying everything she was already feeling. And through it all, she felt his love for her, as real and solid as the cold body pressed against hers. Afterward, they lay tangled together, Diana's head on Valdris's chest. "I want forever with you," she said softly. "Is that crazy? Is it too soon?" "It is not too soon when you have found your mate," Valdris said, his fingers trailing through her hair. "And yes, Diana, I want forever too. Which means we must discuss something important." Diana propped herself up on one elbow to look at him. "What?" "Humanity is mortal. You will age and die while I remain unchanged, unless—" He paused, searching her eyes. "Unless you choose to become like me, to be turned, to join me in immortality." Diana's breath caught. "You'd turn me? If you wanted it. Not now, you're far too young, and you should experience more of human life before making such a choice. But someday, if you still love me and still want forever, I would be honored to turn you, to make you my mate in truth, forever." Diana thought about it. A year ago, even 6 months ago, the idea would have terrified her. But now, imagining spending eternity with Valdris, watching the world change together, never having to say goodbye, it sounded like a dream. "Yes," she said. "Not now, but someday, when I'm ready. I want forever with you." Valdris pulled her back down into his arms, and Diana felt his lips curve into a smile against her forehead. "Then forever you shall have, my love." The next few months passed in a haze of happiness. Diana threw herself into her work and her relationship with equal enthusiasm. The court had become home, the staff had become friends, and Valdris had become her entire heart. 10 months after that first desperate night in the cellar, Diana woke up one morning to a message from an unknown number. Her blood ran cold when she opened it. "I know where you are. You think you can hide from me forever? I'm coming for you." It was Marcus. Diana's hands shook as she showed the message to Valdris that evening. His expression went absolutely glacial. "He should not have been able to find you. I made sure of it." His eyes blazed. "Someone must have told him, someone who knows where the court is located." "What do I do?" Diana whispered. Valdris pulled her into his arms, his embrace fierce and protective. "You do nothing. You stay here where you are safe. I will handle Marcus Carver once and for all." "Don't kill him," Diana said, though part of her wanted exactly that. "Please, I meant what I said before. I don't want that on my conscience." Valdris tilted her face up to his. "I will not kill him unless he forces my hand, but I will ensure he never threatens you again. Trust me? Always." That night, Valdris left the court with Soren and several other vampires. Diana waited in their shared chambers. She'd moved into Valdris's rooms weeks ago, trying not to panic. Hours passed. Finally, as dawn approached, Valdris returned. Diana flew into his arms. "What happened? Is he—" "Marcus Carver is alive, but he will never bother you again." Valdris guided her to sit on the bed beside him. "He was drunk when we found him, working himself up to storm the court entrance. I took his memories of your whereabouts, of the vampires, of everything supernatural. As far as he knows now, you left him for another man and moved across the country. He has no memory of calling my name or our confrontation. He will not search for you, because he believes you are beyond his reach." Diana sagged with relief. Can he hurt anyone else? Other women? I planted some suggestions in his mind as well. He will seek therapy. He will not raise a hand to another person without experiencing crippling guilt and pain. It is not perfect, but it is something. Diana threw her arms around Valdris's neck. Thank you for protecting me without becoming a monster yourself." "You make me want to be better," Valdris said simply. "More human, despite what I am." They held each other as the first light of dawn began to creep into the magical sky above the court. Diana felt the last chain fall away, the last shadow of her old life dissolve. She was free, truly, completely free. 1 year to the day after Valdris had appeared in that cellar, he took Diana back to the underground gardens and got down on one knee. "Diana Carver, you are the light in my immortal darkness. You are my heart, my hope, my home. Will you do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my wife?" Diana didn't hesitate. Yes, 1,000 times yes. The ring he slipped onto her finger was a twin to the promise ring she still wore, white gold and ruby, ancient and beautiful. They kissed surrounded by night-blooming flowers, and Diana felt like the luckiest woman alive. The wedding was held 2 months later, a blend of human and vampire traditions. Diana wore a dress of white silk and lace, her dark hair crowned with flowers. Valdris wore formal black, his white hair gleaming in the magical light. The ceremony was performed by an ancient vampire who had been a priest in his human life and attended by both the human staff and the vampire nobility of the court. When Valdris kissed her as his wife, the court erupted in cheers. Diana laughed against his lips, giddy with joy. The reception was magnificent, with music and dancing and more happiness than Diana had ever imagined possible. As she and Valdris danced their first dance as husband and wife, she looked up at him with wonder. "I can't believe this is real, that you're real." "I am very real, wife." Valdris smiled down at her. "And you are stuck with me now." "Good. That's exactly where I want to be." They honeymooned in one of Valdris' properties, a castle in Scotland, remote and beautiful. They spent 2 weeks there, just the two of them, making love and talking and planning their future. "When do you want to be turned?" Valdris asked one night as they lay in bed, Diana curled against his side. Diana considered the question. "Not yet. I want a few more years as human. I want to experience things, make memories. And then, when I'm ready, I'll ask you. Is that all right?" "That is perfect. I will wait as long as you need, my love." 5 years later, at the age of 31, Diana asked Valdris to turn her. They did it carefully, with preparation and ceremony. Valdris drained her to the edge of death, then gave her his ancient blood. The transformation was agonizing and ecstatic all at once, and when Diana woke 3 days later, she was no longer human. She was a vampire, immortal, powerful, and still desperately in love with her husband. Valdris was there when she opened her new red eyes, and the first thing she saw was his face filled with wonder and joy. "Hello, my eternal wife," he whispered. Diana touched her own face, feeling the cool skin, the sharpness of her new fangs. "Hello, my eternal husband." They kissed, and it was like the first time and every time all at once. Diana felt the full scope of their bond now, the deep connection between vampire mates that she'd only glimpsed before. Valdris was in her veins, in her soul, part of her in a way that went beyond mortality. "I love you," she said against his lips. "I love you," he replied, "for all eternity." And they did. Diana proved to be a formidable vampire, strong and clever and deeply respected in the court. She and Valdris ruled together, partners in every sense. They watched the world change, saw technology transform society, witnessed empires rise and fall. Through it all, they had each other. Diana never forgot that desperate night in the cellar, whispering a name into the darkness. It was the night her real life began. The night she found not just salvation, but love in its truest form. Centuries later, when young vampires asked Diana how she'd come to be mated to the Vampire King, she would smile and tell them the truth. I was locked in a cellar to starve, and I whispered his name. He came, he saved me, and then he did something far more precious. He taught me how to live again, and I will love him for eternity because of it. And she did. They lived forever in the Court of Thorns, the Vampire King and his beloved queen. Their love story became legend among both vampires and humans who knew the truth, a testament to the fact that sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places. All it takes is the courage to call out into the darkness and the hope that someone will answer. For Diana Carver, now Diana Thornhart, that hope had been rewarded beyond her wildest dreams. She'd found freedom, purpose, and a love that would never end. And she lived happily ever after, with her Vampire King by her side for all the days of her immortal life.